Hi, everyone. It's Sarah Shuey. I'm the founder and CEO of Happily, the largest network of live and virtual event specialists. And we are live right now. Today's Wednesday. It's 2:00 p.m. PST, and I'm in sunny Los Angeles. And every Wednesday at this time, I invite a friend and a colleague to come and share their wisdom and their knowledge, specifically mostly around, I think virtual events is kind of the trending theme that we talk about. But today, we're going to be talking about podcasting. So I'm excited to bring up a really cool guy. Let's see, Mike McAllen. Say hi, Mike.
Hi. Say hi, Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hi.
You're so nice. You're so nice to say I'm a cool guy. I've never heard that before. That's so nice.
You are, because I just saw your really cool kids book and like now like instantly I'm like, wow, Mike is so cool. Also, like this weird thing that I feel like anyone with like a double letter, like I have an SS and you have an MM, immediately cool.
I have to add that to my repertoire of other people too. I like them too. Two letters.
Right? I think it's great. Okay. So, and also, I mean, like, look, you are pretty cool. Your background, like, you're a chameleon of sorts, I feel like. But you can tell us a little bit more about it. But just as a quick overview, Mike went from being a firefighter, very cool, to a global roadie for corporate events, which I think is also really cool. And then an event entrepreneur, also so cool, because yay, entrepreneurs. Then a podcast host for the Meetings podcast as you launched, which is like pretty big deal for 10 years. And early in podcasting, also cool. And now you actually take your knowledge and you help other people like associations and other organizations launch their podcasts, which also very cool. So well, what am I missing, Mike? This like, and how did you go from like firefighter to like roadie?
The story goes like I was a firefighter for a long time, really enjoyed it, and I wanted something more stressful and dangerous. So I got into the events industry because it's way more stressful than being a firefighter, to tell you the truth. But
isn't it like really, I know there's actually a list, and stressful jobs.
Totally, yeah. Being in the events industry is way more stressful than being a firefighter. Seriously. Well, anyway, I got injured on a fire. I was on a fire and I broke my leg really badly, and I came home. And because I moved in with my mom. I was doing. Are you gone? Are you there?
Yeah, I was like,
oh my gosh, wow! You just let me go. That's great. Anyway, like, where'd she go?
You land.
No, I was living in the city then too. I went home with my mom. I had my leg, all this operations and stuff. Got it fixed because you go home, you're the fridge. You go home to your mom, and the fridge fills itself. Your laundry gets done. It's like the best place to recuperate. So I did that. Then I moved to San Francisco, and one of my roommates at the time was in the events business, and she said, "Do you have a passport?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." So it's like, "Come along."
I need some help. Like a U.S. passport?
Yeah, because the events were all over the world. So she goes, "Can you come help on this event? We need some help." So I went off, and that was the first time I went off and did something. We went to Korea.
Hey, I'm half Korean.
Yeah, and it was this little island off of Korea called Jeju Island.
Jeju, yes.
It's Jeju, like yeah.
Everyone honeymoons. Like if I was able to have a honeymoon, I would be on Jeju right now.
Yeah, it was the craziest place because everybody wore the same shirts. Like if you just had gotten married, you would have the same clothes on. So it was kind of a joke around because we're all wearing our uniform, not our uniforms, but our stuff. So you'd be walking with somebody, like some guy or something. They'd be like, "Oh, did you guys get married?" We're like, "I didn't know." "Oh yeah, we did." So, it's just funny.
That is so cute.
Yeah, it was really fun. I have a lot of stories about that, but we don't want to go into that. Anyway, so I was in the events business for a long time. So I worked for an events company called Envision Communications, and we did a lot of like Oracle World, a lot of the San Francisco Bay stuff here, big stuff, Dreamforce, those kind of things. Doing the general session, the staging, the audiovisual, and all the media you'd see. So if you walked into a general session room, we would take care of everything in the room. Plus the creative.
You've been like a tech guy for or event technology, like old school for a while.
Yeah. And we were more of a production creative, make it all happen. So we would hire an AV company to come in, but we would be running the event. So it wasn't
Translating,
we
yeah.
we weren't really like I know a little bit about a lot of stuff in events,
Got it.
like kind of a jack of all trades. And then I started my own company. Tried my best to steal as many clients from my old company as I could, and then no, I'm kidding. But no, we did, and then I ran my own company for a long time until 3 years ago when I closed it. So, and that whole time I had a podcast, and I only got into podcasting because I thought events had so much content that was just going away afterwards. They weren't capturing it. Yeah, and that was my plan. Was like, oh, found out about this podcast. This is 2007.
It's like that's the year I started my business.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was like, I was like, what is content? And I tried to pitch it to my clients, but there was too many hoops to jump through to get a podcast at that time. So it didn't really work. But that was my plan, kind of like, hey, this is going to be something. So you could be walking your dog and hearing, because they would cut out, like they'd have this sales conference and they would cut out like 300 people. Oh, we can't, I was like, well, why don't you capture the stuff and let them at least listen to what the executives are saying somewhere else. Anyway.
Right.
That was so I stuck with it, and then I started doing it myself. And as we've talked about this before, but it's like my whole plan was just to meet people in the industry. So just like you're doing here, I got to, with the Meetings podcast, I would just be able to call up anybody. Hey, you want to be on my internet radio show is what I would call it. And basically 4 people might download it and listen to it or be able to listen to it. But it didn't matter to me. I just wanted to talk to Sarah for an hour.
Yeah. That's really funny. Yeah, I think it's so funny because when I first started my business and I was doing eco events, I actually was a reporter for this weird blog called Eco Razzi, and they would send me out because all I wanted to do was meet other people who were influential and proselytizing sustainability, and so they would send me to all these cool eco events and yeah, even one of my friends, Christina Raw, she was working at Honda. So Honda became a client of ours, and, awesome. She's still a client of mine now. She's keeps jumping and moving into different, things. But yeah, I think it is a really good, anytime you're hosting, content or interviewing people, it's a really great way to expand your network and business development, right?
It really is. Yeah. And right now I do the California Podcast Association. I started that, which was a group because podcasters mostly work in their closets at home and record things. So I wanted a place for people to get together. So for the last 3 years, we've had meetings. And it's kind of the same thing. I'm having people come speak, and then it's great. I get to meet them too, and they have that same interaction. And even now we've moved everything online. So it's just like what you're doing here. It's really fun. I'm making all these new friends in the podcasting world, which is, just a different, I miss my event peoples, but I still see them too. But,
and in this age of Zoom and virtual events and video, are podcasts still relevant? Are they still important?
Well, they're because you can get away from your screen and go listen to it. I think they're the one thing about them is the most intimate. There's one of the most intimate media because you're putting them in your ears. I have Sarah in my ear right now. I mean, that's not a podcast, but you're taking in the information. When you go away like that, it freaks me out.
I can stay here with you if you want. I was just trying to let you have a moment.
No, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But when you go away, I get worried. Are you okay?
No, I'm fine. I'm okay. I will stay with you.
But for podcasting is growing in leaps and bounds right now. I mean, they just hit 1 million podcasts in iTunes.
Oh wow! A million shows.
Yes, advertising is going crazy because they have such a high. Oh, I don't know what's the word for people who hear it from the host. They have more sales from a podcast than they do from normal media.
Yeah.
And also you can go work in the yard, walk your dog, do your dishes. You can listen to it. You're not staring at a screen. So,
go to the ER or walk your dog. That's
I didn't say go to the ER.
Oh, I thought this was
you can.
I was oh my God, there's your firefighter coming out again.
No. You're waiting in line at the post office. Just you can listen to it anywhere. So that's the thing. I think podcasting is great for that.
I mean, I think that is really great because it's just or wash your dishes or whatever, I think it is refreshing to be able to still learn or interact with new ideas without having to be chained to your phone or chained to your desktop or laptop.
And you see people with their earbuds when you're commuting or whatever. I mean, people aren't commuting right now, but everybody's got headphones and they're listening to music, or what else do they listen to? Books and podcasts.
Yep, that's true. So if we wanted to start a podcast, where do you start?
I think the main thing is don't worry about the technical stuff, because people get so wrapped up in that. Oh, I can't do it. You just want it to sound okay. I mean, for my company, we want it to sound perfect, right? But if you're starting a podcast, you can do it. It's just like, you can just record it, make sure you can hear it and it sounds okay to you. That's fine, but don't worry about the tech. The main thing is having the goals, I think, around it. Like, why are you going to do it? So I clearly had a goal when I started that Meetings podcast, was to meet people. So there's a lot of different goals.
What are some of those different goals? Like,
some of the goals are like, so you could set goals like, besides figuring out why you want to do it, then it's like, how do you measure it too? So it's like, there's two different things there. I think, so for like my clients, I kind of have a whole stream of things for them to go through to kind of figure out the topics they're going to talk about. See, you could go even farther back of like what they're going to podcast about. So is it, so if you're interested in whatever, there's a podcast for it now. So it's like, so starting one should be basically coming up with the goals around it. Why are you doing it? How do you want to do it? Do you want to have an interview show? Do you want to just talk yourself? Do you want to have a panel? Do you want to do I have a friend who does a sleeping podcast. He puts people to sleep. I just got off the phone with him earlier. It's like, his podcast puts people to sleep. It's called Sleep With Me. And
he must make a lot of money on that, because I feel like a lot of people would like pay money to like just fall asleep. Who have like
he makes a nice living. He has like 2,500 Patreons.
Hi, Dad.
Hi.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh, she's beautiful.
There's Sarah.
Hi.
That's Sarah. Say hi.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
All right. Can you go? I'm in the middle of something. Go see mommy. Okay. Come on.
But I want
This is like the times we're living in, isn't it? Like,
it really truly is.
All right, so you can sit here if that's okay with Sarah.
Hang out.
All right, so you watch Sarah, and I'm going to talk. Okay, pretend like you're interested. Okay, what was the question? What were we talking about?
Okay. So where do you start? So then first, figure out your goal. You start with why. Really great advice all the time. I think that's for like any piece of, anytime you're making content, right?
Right. And so it is like, actually, who's your audience? And then go talk to your audience first before you do anything. Say, what would you want to hear? I mean, for my associations, I have them right away come up with a list of topics that they think, their team thinks, that will resonate with the members. But then they should go to the members with those topics, like pick some members and say, hey, these are the topics we're thinking about, but they may have a whole different thing they want too. So you could just start adding topics. Then of course it's going to like, some of the other things is going to your influencers. So for us, for the associations, we have them go talk to all the speakers and influencers and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this podcast. What do you think? Here's our topics. They may come up with some different things. Also, you're kind of getting them on board if you're going to do interviews. They're part of the start of the whole thing. The next step, I think, for them is to go to the exhibitors and talk to them, their partners with the exhibitors, and say, hey, these are our topics. We're going to do this podcast. You're getting them kind of on board too. Then they might want to sponsor it later. Then go away and take the topics you have and pick the top 10, and there you're going to get started with those. I think that's the best way to. Sorry.
She's gonna get bored of us real fast. Trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait it out. What types of shows like?
Over there. Who is this?
Oh, excuse me.
I'm sorry about that. Go ahead. Go sit there and look at that iPhone.
I want movies on here. Please.
You're
she's so polite.
Yeah,
Like,
we're very
please
polite.
have movies on
Yes,
here.
you may. So we're right now doing something right now with Sarah, so we can't. There you go.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Sorry.
Good girl.
I don't know where my wife is. I'd run off and get her, but I apologize for that. She is a really good girl.
And talk to me like quickly about like different kinds of like genres of podcasts, or what types of shows are there?
Well, I mean, for formats or just in general, like, because the formats, there are all kinds of like one-on-one interviews, obviously, like we're doing. There's like solo shows.
Right. But like, yeah. And so I mean, like, what's the difference between like, when would you do a one-on-one versus a panel?
There's no movies on here. What?
I think it's all, Tegan, you're killing me here. Sorry, Sarah.
Oh, wait.
That's okay.
I should go get my wife to come get her.
I can
watch this movie. Here you go. Go. All right.
I don't want to watch this movie.
I am so sorry, Sarah. This okay, so there's
Hey, I'll remove you from stream and then like fluff the time and when I see you come back, I'll bring you back up. Okay, so this is a live show and we are live. And these are the moments where, quite frankly, I'm so happy that I don't have children. But also, you know, most of the time I'm really jealous that I don't have a child. So it's all good. This is how it is. You know, I'm wondering, like, do any of you, if any of you are like listening and like commenting, if any of you have podcasts, and if you do have podcasts, like, what are your podcasts about and what made you decide to have one? So post those in the comments and we'll get to them. And it looks like Mike is back. So here we go. Okay, Mike. Let's see. You need to unmute.
Sorry.
Perfect.
My wife was meditating upstairs, did not know the challenge.
You live in the Bay Area, right?
I do. I am so sorry about that.
That's super classic. Like, she's like all like zenned out, like has like no idea the chaos that's ensuing.
No idea. And she's way on the other side of the house. So it's like, oh gosh. You were talking about different types of podcasts, right? Formats.
Yeah, but like, you know, I'm curious, like sort of like jumping, you know, continuing like conversation forward. Like, can you actually monetize a podcast? Like, and like, when can you? And is because I've heard like some people, like, is this when you're podcasting? Like, are you, you know, what's the business model behind this? Like, I wonder why people do it, or like when they start making money from it.
Yeah, it really depends. And it's really not something to get into to make money for. I mean, you can make money. You can make a lot of money at it. Our clients have very niche audiences with the associations, and they already have an audience. They're not searching for an audience. So if you know, the Sarah and Mike show, we would be looking for an audience right away to get. So they already have their audience. They already have sponsors. They already have everything in their case. So I wouldn't really recommend anyone getting into podcasting to make money. It's more of a passion thing. If you're really into something, passionate about something, then do it. Cool. But there are lots of ways to make money. I mean, obviously the advertising, sponsorship, but you know, merchandise, it's all the same stuff that you would get, you know, kind of with the events. I mean, but you can sell courses, and depends really what you're doing. There's a lot of avenues. Patreon, there's some people that do value for value. So you could have a Patreon account, like I was telling you about Drew with the Sleep With Me podcast, who puts people to sleep. He uses a Patreon account. He has advertising too, but his patrons give him $5 to $20 a month, and he has like 2,000 people giving him money every month. It's like, and he's putting them to sleep. He's adding value to their lives. So
like, it is. This example, what is the name of his podcast? Like, I have to check it out now.
It's called
Sleeping, but I want to check it out.
No, it's great. He's a great guy too. He's very helpful in the community, to the podcast community. It's called Sleep With Me. Yeah, so that's great. Yeah. But you know, and he does it on a regular basis, and then he has more shows on the Patreon thing that people, you know, Patreon that's basically you buy you can give money to creatives.
Totally.
Yeah.
Actually, like, shout out to Janet Lee, like one of the first people that ever like worked with me. I took her with me to TED, and then she ran the content partnerships for TED and helped them package up their talks for the NPR podcast. And then now she's over at Patreon, specializing in podcasts too. So
nice. Yeah. They came and spoke at one of our meetups like 3 years ago, and they're great people. They're local here too. They're in San Francisco.
Oh yeah, that's right. She's in New York, and I think she's like sad that she's like remote, but now everyone is remote. So lol. Jokes.
Right. Yeah, and people have made books out of it, out of podcasts. Like people have done all kinds of things with them. It's
Is there like a rollout strategy? Like if you were say like you were doing a buffet of content, you've got videos, you've got podcasts, the books, the social media. Like how do you like connect all those things together? Where does podcast play? Is there a good strategy for that?
There's a ton of different people are doing different things strategy wise. The affiliate marketing stuff. There's just so many different things you can do. I'm offhand. I can't think of a playbook to tell you right now, but there are so many different ways to, leverage it. You could bring people on that have their own courses and you're getting a cut of what they sell from you, have a special, there's just so many ways to actually make money. But again, I wouldn't get into it if you want to make money. It's one of those things. Right. I like to say that because it's true. It's like, and it's also, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to take some time to get that audience going.
And what are what's a good audience and what's a bad audience?
Yeah. Well, a good audience is a giant audience. So you can do it like a CPM model, but like I said, a niche audience is, for example, I saw a guy speak one time and he has a horse network of shows all about horses. Different shows about horses. And the one show that he made the most revenue was from this one was for buggies, people that ride on buggies, like on the old Western, and that they had a very small audience, but anytime he would mention something, they would buy it.
High value.
So high value, like it was like that small audience was just very valuable. And I heard that about the Peloton. This person did the Peloton, the bikes.
Yep.
Had a Peloton podcast, and they made really good money because there was no other way to get information really about Peloton, but they could listen to it, and they sold out everything that they would put on the show, like all this other gear. You wear a Peloton. I don't know I don't have a Peloton. I don't know what.
I don't either.
On an indoor bike, but yeah.
A lot of money in that somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting that like one, you have to love it, and like two, you have to go super niche, like to be able to maybe make a buck off of it. But like it seems that like the more, at least for me, like the more like niche I get and like the weirder it gets, the more I fall in love with it even more. So I love that like virtuous cycle.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's a fun, podcasting is fantastic. It really is a fun thing to get involved in. If you have a business wise, for event wise, it can be very, repurposing content is, it's the perfect way to use the podcast because it doesn't cost much, but it's a great thing to get involved in if you're into something. If you're really into something, it's, get into podcasting because you'll meet more people that's really into that. That's, you know what I mean?
Cool. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so what are like a couple of quick like tips and tricks to, if you do start a podcast, to like make it really awesome?
I think the stuff I talked about before is like really know that. Did I talk about like an avatar? Like you really want to know who your audience is, like build that, just like we said that, like, any business, just figure out who that is and then figure out what they want and give it to them and edit. I think editing is highly, people don't care about a lot of stuff that people start out on podcast chat right away. Just edit the crap out of it, bring it down to something small. I hope that this, where Tegan, my daughter, came in here, that was like, if we were doing a podcast, we might want to edit all that.
Right.
And I do apologize for that thing, but for her coming in, but editing, I think, is very important. Spend some time, if you're going to do anything like this, spend some time editing or hire somebody that can edit, because your audience will appreciate it so much. That's a good little tip. I have all kinds of technical tips and stuff, but maybe that's going too far into the weeds for people who are listening about this.
Well, maybe give us like one advanced, like, pro level tip.
There's a free service called Auphonic, auphonic.com, and it is a miracle tool for someone who's starting a podcast. You can take that recording and just dump it in there. It'll clean it all up. I've used that several times for people who need some help They'll send me a file. Can you help me? But Auphonic.com, and you can put in all your ID3 tags in there.
What's an ID3 tag?
Yeah, and the LUFS levels. So the ID3 tags is like if you open up your you open up your phone, it's all the, like the artwork and all the stuff that's in iTunes. So you can put it all in there. So it's one step's done. So it's really handy tool, and it's free. Unless you have really long podcasts, then it's going to cost you something. But you get so many hours a month or something.
What are like the top, like, the coolest, like, or best, I don't know, great podcasts that?
I'm going to tell you one because I think you're going to like it. It's called Hardcore History. It's all about history.
Oh yeah, I met that guy. I actually met him, like, Dan Carlin and his beautiful family backstage at a Zach Galifianakis, like,
awesome.
It was Bill Maher. Zach Galifianakis was also there. Dan Carlin in the green room. He was cool, and his family. Yeah,
he's
cool
a great guy. And his podcast can be like 8 hours long.
Yeah, right. And
they're crazy long, but he's so
in the history.
Yeah, and he just records it as he goes. He researches and records as he goes. That was one that's just and then there's a million like star ones with people interviewing famous people. Those are all over the place. And
there was one that was like Saved by the Bell, like where these like people, like, I think they like were a little tipsy maybe, and then they recount, like they watch Saved by the Bell and they like tell you what happens, which is like so I grew up like that, but then like Coco, he's like never really watched a Saved by the Bell, so he's like, what is happening? This guy's back is horrible. That was one of my favorites.
There are so many. I mean, I listen to like The Daily every day. It's like a New York Times every morning. It's a morning one that's become part of my, that's one thing I didn't really mention, but if you're going to do a podcast, you should try and make it a habit for people, just like you're doing with this show. It comes out at the same time all the time. You start to make it a habit for people. They look forward to getting it. And when they don't get it, they get really pissed at you. So it's a good thing to make it a habit. Try and make your podcast a habit. That's a good tip. That's a really good tip, actually, because you'll forget about it. So if you
and like,
that's a good reason.
Out to anybody who's looking forward to my LinkedIn lives every week. I love you. It's like it's not as like obviously reduced as you think it should be, maybe. But okay, cool. I'm gonna end us out in a closing game. Sorry, I realized I was like, oh, make it. I'm like, here I am making it a habit, but does anybody care? Podcasters must feel like that too, right? Like, I don't know. I do. Because
you're a great host. I mean, I remember when I first met you. I met you in San Francisco here at PCMA.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and you came in. Like, oh, you got to meet her. She's great. And I was like, holy, you're like a hurricane coming in here, just wonderful. But you're just so fun to be. And I had to leave too. That was terrible. But I did hang out for a while. But you were just fantastic. You're a perfect host for this kind of stuff. So if I need a podcast host, you are.
You're invited back now, just kidding. I'm totally kidding. But I'm like, never again. I'm just kidding. I love you.
Not you with the kid. Yeah.
Okay, so I do a game. I invented a game, and we close out like my things every time with a game, and it's called Good Name Bad Search. And what I did was I searched for Michael McAllen, even though it's Mike.
No, that's my name though, Michael.
I know, and actually, you're really good with your SEO on Mike McAllen. I have to say, it was like you were there all the time. It was like I had to find, but Michael surfaced. And so what I do is I show you a Michael McAllen, and I ask you to guess, where is this guy from? And I think because you're a podcaster, I'm also going to ask it, where is he from? What does he do? And in this case, what do you think his podcast should be about or would be about? All right. So
okay.
Michael McAllen. Hey.
Oh my God. Where is he from?
Yeah, you tell me.
I think he's probably from Philadelphia.
Okay, and what does he do?
I don't know. He looks kind of shady. I think he might be I think he's an actor. He looks like he's
all right. And then what do you think his podcast should be about?
I think it's about probably dating women, probably how to date women. Kind of thing.
This is amazing. Okay, so let me just tell you that I feel people are really good at knowing like what their name, like what what the opposite person is. Hold on, let me pull up this guy's website. I have to get a different screen.
That's so funny. You're so clever.
You did a pretty good job, I have to say. So Michael McAllen is a model. So not an actor, but he's a model. I found him on Model Mayhem, and he actually is from Southampton in the UK. And you know what? I noticed this thing like right here. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know how to zoom in. Wait, do I?
I can't see it. Oh,
look at this.
Whoa,
he does shoot nudes, so I feel like perhaps he
shoots nudes.
Yeah, he does.
That's so funny because I do too. It's so funny.
Well, and you just do it because you love it. I mean, he's actually making money from it.
Yeah. Well, I'm alone in the room, but it's fun. Hey, you left again. Where'd you go, Sarah?
I left you. Sorry. I accidentally closed this window.
I know you left me at that. I said something inappropriate, I guess, and then you went away. So I was like,
"Oh no. That was funny." I thought. So, anyways, Mike, it has just been a pleasure to chat with you and with your beautiful daughter Tegan.
Sorry about that.
No,
that.
I mean, stop apologizing. Great. She's great. She's super cool. I loved how polite she was.
She's very polite. Yeah, we demand that from her.
It's good. You're doing a good job. So I can't wait until she's old enough for me to LinkedIn Live her too.
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sarah. Though I appreciate the time that you gave me here to. I don't know. Did I make a fool of myself? But no, I think it went well.
No, it's great. So everyone, make sure that you go and look up Mike McAllen on LinkedIn. Give him a follow. If you're trying to start a podcast, definitely hit him up. He has way much more knowledge than he was able to share with us today. And yeah, that'd be it. So next week at the same time, Wednesday, 2 p.m. PST, we are going to talk with my friend Katie Byron, who is an award-winning production designer. And Katie and I both have this kind of obsessive, compulsive thing maybe about people's backgrounds in all of your virtual events and Zoom calls. And so Katie's going to come and we're going to talk about what your background says about you and how you can improve it. So I think it should be great, super fun. Thank you all again so much for being here. I really love the time that I get to spend with our guests and with you. And so I hope you have a wonderful day.